if we're being intellectually honest, there's really no good reason why Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., should be HHS secretary. An advisor, a confidant, somebody who talks to the president and advises, but there's no managerial experience in his resume. There's nothing that says he is qualified to do this job that is in charge of the health of all of us, all these different lanes. If he has views and has insights around food sources, around vaccines, then those should be given in advisory roles.
Why?
Well, because...
Well, what were the qualifications of the previous ones?
Well, I think it's important to always remember that you put yourself... Say that again?
What were the management qualifications? I mean, Xavier Becerra...
I'm not talking about the previous. I'm looking forward.
But you're calling into question whether he could actually do this job. And I think it's...
Absolutely. I think America is now, and I think
it's important to discuss it, because Xavier Becerra was just a lawyer and a politician with no management experience.
So does two negatives, two wrongs make a right?
Sylvia Burwell was a Walmart lobbyist. Donna Shalala was a university person. Look,
RFK Jr. is a nut.
Okay, so that's different than what you just said. You just said he doesn't possess the requisite managerial experience, but then we get to the real issue here, which is you want to insult the man, which is your right to do because you opposed him in the election. But you, Doctor, are raising the issues that he has been raising, and I think they're appropriate questions to raise. I don't know whether he can be confirmed or not. The vaccine stuff at the table is obviously going to be the flashpoint of this hearing. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you one thing. This whole issue of the CDC and these public health agencies, look, public trust in the health regime in this country is as low as it's ever been.
But why?
It's because of COVID.
Right.
Because of school closures. Because of mask mandates. Because this country was... But let me just finish. Because this country was drugged through a bunch of condescending and heavy-handed mandates that all turned out to be garbage, and that's why it's low, and the questions are valid.
And RFK is the answer to all of that.
Yeah, but RFK helped promote the assault on the CDC that lowered the disinformation that led
to CDC led to its own demise.
More than 1 million deaths, Scott. More than 1 million deaths in the United States, higher than any other industrialized nation per capita. That's the result of failed policies, the demonization of the conspiracy theories.
Whose policies?
All right,
under the Trump administration.
John, let me let...
Guys, hey everybody! What a week! What a week it's been for left-wingers going absolutely crazy over the Trump cabinet picks. We got to talk about that clip for 1 second before we just talk about the topic in general. Scott Jennings just nailed that scumbag. That was Jeff Duncan, who, by the way, used to be a Republican member of Congress from Georgia. And you heard that clip started with him saying, if we're being honest, to which Scott caught him red-handed, just completely lying about the whole argument. He starts out saying, oh, RFK Jr., he doesn't have experience to manage a lot of people, which is what you need at DHHS. And then Jennings just busts him because the past 3 HHS secretaries have had no similar relevant experience managing, giant bureaucracies or anything like that. Yet somehow they all managed. And of course, then when he's caught red-handed in that complete gibberish, he finally just goes off the rails and just starts, he's a nutcase. He's a nutcase. Like, well, yeah. So you all along, because remember he started off by saying, he might be able to be a confidant. He can be an advisor. He just can't be the secretary because he doesn't have experience. And of course, once that blew up, he just caved in. He just conceded the point. He's a nut. He's a nut. Not just want to go about that. And of course, Jennings proceeded to. Anyway, but yeah, you guys. I mean, we could have a whole clip show of this, but let's not. Just going through all of the spurgouts of the left wingers on the internet over just about all of Trump's picks for the cabinet, although not some of them, but certainly some, many, and of course, especially Bobby Kennedy Jr. And as Matt Walsh has said, we have drunk deep from the chalice of liberal tears. But and honestly, this would be a great moment for Trump to really hit him hard and really kick him while they're down. And Trump should announce that he's going to implement Project 2025. Because even though Trump obviously never said he was going to support Project 2025, in fact, the moment it came up, he said, I don't even know what that is. I have nothing to do with it. That's not what my policies are going to be. In fact, some of the things that they have in their policies, I'm not going to implement. I don't support them. But you know what? The Democrats just spent billions and billions and billions of dollars telling the American public Trump was going to implement Project 25. Well, I'd call that a mandate because I don't think Project 2025 was all that bad anyway. And hey, Trump could just say, you know what? You guys argued that I was going to implement Project 2025 and the American people voted for me. I'd say that's endorsement. In fact, even the things that Project 2025 didn't say they would do, but you claim they would do. I think we have a mandate for those too, right? So women, the Democrats just told America that the government will be tracking your pregnancy from conception till birth, and we will come after you if you don't do everything we want you to do. We're going to control your bodies. And the American people voted for Trump anyway, so I'd say that's a mandate, guys. No, seriously. Obviously, these are just jokes. Hey, Will Call Magic on Rumble. How are you guys doing tonight? I see you guys also on YouTube and Facebook as well. Although, actually, I don't see any Facebook chats yet. I don't know. Did Facebook solve their problem? I think they did solve their problem because we had a show with Shane. Hey, Mark, I do see. Yes, Facebook did solve their little glitch. Mark says Trump did so well in the election, he even got more votes than the typical Republican candidate for president in deep blue Highland Park. Yeah, he beat the typical Republicans everywhere. In fact, this is going to probably come up in the U.S. Senate confirmation hearings when they argue about some of Trump's cabinet picks, and Trump can say, I did better than any of you did in the last election, which is true, by the way. Trump did better than any Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in the United States. That is a mandate if there was one. But anyway, going back to the liberal tiers thing. In all seriousness, folks, I mean, it's bad and it's sad for the people we know personally. My parents are liberals, and let's just say they are not taking the election well. My mother has said she will not watch the news at all for the next 4 years to avoid hearing the word Trump. I don't think that will work, and I don't think she'll stick to it, but we'll see. We'll see. That's what she said she would do. But actually, she, I think, handled it better than my father, who is being dragged by his girlfriend to Canada. They are going to move to Nova Scotia, so we shall see. We shall see. I mean, it's funny, but it's serious. I mean, if it's terrible if they actually follow through with it. But I mean, people really are having meltdowns over this stuff, and it's a real sign of just how badly the media has absolutely warped people's minds and turned them, and this gotten them ginned up in this lather of hatred and fear and loathing, and it's really disgusting. And let's just hope that as events transpire for the next 4 years, that they cool off a bit. We'll see. Hey, Russ, good to see you. Quiet stream tonight, just me, but we still got plenty of stuff to talk about. Real quick, Jay says, it's been almost 2 weeks since the election. I'm seeing reports that multiple states are still counting ballots. Yes, I have seen those too. And some presumed Republican winners may actually get beaten by the time the quote-unquote counting is finished. Is there any path for them to try to reverse the presidential election result? The presidential election result, no. Absolutely not. There's no chance in hell. Trump has won. He has multiple states security on that point. So they have to overturn the results in multiple states, which is completely impossible at this point. They've all been called. As for the super close races in the U.S. House of Representatives, you know what? That's the NRSC's problem. That's the campaign's problem. That's not our guys' problem. We don't have that problem in Michigan, so it's problems in other states. But I understand, guys, like in some of these really, really close races, and it's obviously intolerable that election results are still being counted. And by the way, Alaska is still counting ballots, which is a Republican-controlled state. So it's not exclusively a Democrat problem. But either way, this is the task that the campaigns have, and the candidates for federal office, for U.S. House of Representatives and U.S. Senate, they should have the resources. They should have been planning for this, and their state parties and all the rest to handle these contingencies. So fortunately, we can breathe easy in Michigan, relatively speaking. I'll talk about the lame duck session in a moment or two here. But yeah, hey, Mark, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. But anyway, so when we left off, we had actually, before we get to that, I was going to get back to talking about the cabinet appointments. But first, there has been some breaking news today. Let me put this up on the screen. If you guys didn't hear about this already, which maybe you didn't, because it's a Sunday. But Biden has just authorized Ukraine to strike Russia with long-range U.S. missiles, which, let's be clear, Ukraine does not have the capability to use long-range U.S. missiles without U.S. personnel. And so this is actually a major escalation in the Ukraine. In fact, this is really, believe it or not, because the media has spun people around on this, this is actually the really the first time that the U.S. is crossing a Russian red line. There's been a lot of talk about crossing Russia's red lines that were actually never Russia's red lines, like authorizing ATACMS in the first place, authorizing the use of, what was the other missiles? The Storm Shadow missiles, which are I think British, the Javelins, all these, and these were all lines that the U.S. set for themselves. That Biden said we wouldn't do this, wouldn't do that. But this is not even American troops being involved in operations in the contested parts of Russia/Ukraine, the Donbass. This is Biden announcing that Americans will be involved with the Ukrainians in using missiles against territory in Russia proper, meaning Moscow. This is a major escalation, which obviously is being done to ensnare Donald Trump in the Ukraine war and prevent him from getting out. Now, the official reason that they're doing this, by the way, the preposterous, ludicrous reason that the administration has actually given, this pretext, this pathetic pretext that just tells you right from the get-go that they're full of shit, is that this is their response to there being North Korean troops on the battlefield, but what they actually mean, the battlefield being in Russia, in Kursk, which is the part of Russia that Ukraine invaded this past summer, which has become a death trap for the Ukrainians. This story came out, this claim came out with no evidence whatsoever, no evidence at all that North Korean soldiers are fighting in Kursk on behalf of Russia. There's today not a single piece of evidence that there's actually a single North Korean body on the battlefield in the front lines anywhere. Now, for how preposterous this is, even if this was true, they would be on Russian territory, because that's what Kursk is. It's not any contested area at all. It's Russian territory. And even if the North Koreans are actually fighting in the Donbass, that's the contested territory, that still doesn't mean that we would have to therefore involve ourselves in the war, which is what Russia has absolutely said, plain as day, that means. It means that this is an act of war. This is the United States entering a war with Russia. That's what this means. And the reason they're doing it, the only reason they're doing it, there's no military sense in this whatsoever. We don't have all that many ATACMS missiles, by the way. Russia's air defenses are outstanding. We might get some through, but they'll be pinprick attacks. They're not going to be like when Russia fires hundreds of missiles in one day and destroys Ukrainian critical energy infrastructure. Russia's a giant country. This is not going to change the course of the war. It's got nothing to do with Russia or North Korea or anything. It's all about sucking Trump into Ukraine, which is, I mean, besides being unbelievably cynical and pathetic and disgraceful, it's also, when you think about it, horrifically evil. That hundreds of thousands of more people might be killed because Joe Biden wants to fuck over Trump. Like, this should be impeachable right here. This should be an impeachable offense, right? This is going to war without an act of Congress. That's what this is. That's what this is. So anyway, all that being said, I guess that's kind of a good segue into the next topic, which is how Trump might handle foreign policy. But let's go through the cabinet first. We got some new cabinet picks. So if you guys didn't see this, me and Shane and I did a stream this past Tuesday where we went through some of Trump's cabinet picks here. And this is the list we came up with, the grades that we came up with. You'll have to watch the Tuesday stream if you want us to talk about them. But I think most of the people that were watching the stream kind of agreed with us too on most of these. I think some people would probably more optimistic about Pete Hegseth than I was, certainly, and Shane too, I think. But hey, you guys are welcome to your opinions too. These are mine. In fact, actually, having seen a clip more recently, I think we got an issue with John Radcliffe here. So Radcliffe, let me bring this up here. He helped out Trump in his first impeachment, so obviously there's this whole angle of Trump is bringing in people who are loyal to him, and that's all well and good. But here, let me show you. This is a very recent interview with John Radcliffe. Here's what he says.
And then even yesterday, what President Zelensky said was what many of us had been saying on shows like this, Maria, for the past month or so, which is that the time to provide Ukrainian support in terms of sanctions against Russia and weaponry to Ukraine is now, not after Russia invades. So, I think President Zelensky, would probably tell you, with friends like Joe Biden, who needs enemies? And then even yesterday.
Okay, that was not the clip I was looking for. The clip I was looking for was something much, much more recent. This is an old one. But what John Radcliffe says, he mindlessly repeats this bald accusation from the FBI, completely unsubstantiated, which is that Iran has been attempting to assassinate Donald Trump, for which there's a claim from Christopher Wray, the FBI director, who you might recall was intimately involved in the framing and both impeachments of Donald J. Trump. That Christopher Wray claimed without any evidence that Iran is trying to assassinate Donald Trump, which is obviously a play for him to get involved in going to war with Iran. And then Radcliffe, having cited this without any evidence, says we need to attack Iran right now. So anyway, I'm sorry I didn't have the right clip for that. But anyway, going back to this tab here, I'm taking Radcliffe down. He is to be the CIA director, so he goes down 2 pegs at least, if not more, well into the D territory. So unfortunately, you can see we've got a very big split here between people that are great and people that are not so great in the Trump administration, up until as of last Tuesday. But we got some more folks to add on to the list now. So let's see here. We've got some new appointments. Of course, first and foremost, we have Bobby Kennedy Jr. And no question where he goes on this one. The liberal tiers tell the story, but in all seriousness, this is someone who, first off, has been taking the truth to power about everything COVID related. He is ready to clean house with all of the people that lied to the American public about what was good for their health. Secondly, he's actually interested in trying to make America healthy again, something he can lead by example on. He is an intractable opponent of the pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, and the people poisoning the American public. And as if all of that wasn't enough, of course, he is a Kennedy whose father and uncle were both murdered by the Deep State, if I may say so, and is certainly going to have a big impact on Trump's thinking in a lot of ways. Of course, also HHS is the biggest federal agency in terms of personnel. The budget is astronomical. I mean, technically, actually, because I think doesn't Medicare and Social Security fall under HHS's budget? Does it not? So yeah, our RFK Jr. S tier pick, perfect. Looking forward to seeing great things from Bobby Kennedy. So go Bobby. Next up, we have Jay Clayton, who is going to be the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Now, I don't know all that much about this guy, to tell you the truth. He was the former SEC chairman under Trump. I will say, having seen the media's reaction to him, I am going to put him in, and I'll be generous because the tier is kind of empty. I'll put him in the B tier, but I'm leaning towards C mostly because the media doesn't hate his guts, which tells you he is at best going to be neutral. And frankly, many of those people that Trump appointed in his previous term that we were not sure where they'd go ended up going really, really badly for him. So I'll be charitable and put him in the B tier, although my instincts say he should probably be in C. Actually, I changed my mind. I went with my instincts. I'm putting him next to William McGinley in the C tier. Next, we have Doug Burgum. This guy. Hold on, let me play the clip here.
People are saying, we shouldn't send money to Ukraine because we need to spend it on our own border. Actually, America, we can do both of those things at the same time. And it's not that hard. We can help Ukraine beat Russia and we can secure our own border at the same time. But the real focus has to be China. That's where the real threat is.
So these are things he was saying when he's campaigning for office. And that is the only break I will give him about that. Now, it is also true that he has been tapped to be Secretary of the Interior, which might not seem like such a bad thing because it's just, land management and that kind of stuff. However, he is also being given a brand new post, a brand new seat on the National Security Council. So if those are his honest thoughts about Russia and China and then he's just going to be another neocon. I see nothing at all that makes him stand out as anything. I think probably you guys are the same as me. You never heard of him until he ran for president against Donald Trump. So what is he even doing in his administration other than being a billionaire buddy of his, if that's even the case? I doubt it. I don't trust him. I think he's just someone that's going to stab him in the back when the time is right. So I'm going to put Doug Burgum in the D tier. And there we go. Next up, there's actually we got a couple of people that we never even put into place last time because they're just White House staffers, so you just have to assume we'll do their job. We don't really know much about them. Two more this week. Stephen Chung, who is now given the title Assistant to the President and Director of Communications, and Sergio Gore, Assistant to the President and Director of Presidential Personnel Office, have both been tapped for those respective roles. I actually met Sergio Gore once, very briefly. It was like the very, very, very first meeting of Rand Paul's presidential campaign, like before it even started, like the very first pre-planning meeting. Sergio Gore was there. So I got to meet him briefly. He seemed like a good guy, but I don't know anything more about him other than that he used to work for Rand Paul. Mark Ashley Price. I hope Linda McMahon becomes a cabinet member. Maybe there's some positions left, although they're disappearing. Maybe commerce. Jay Mashad. So Biden is literally starting a U.S.-Russian war before wandering off to the rainforest. Did you see that clip? Yeah. Yeah, let's let him do that. But yeah, obviously this is just his way of screwing Trump over. Although it's funny, did you guys see the clip earlier this week, during the week when Trump met with Biden, when the fire in the Oval Office was burning so bright you could barely hear them talking over it. But Biden was all warmth and smiles to Trump, so polite, not treating him like one might treat Adolf Hitler, who had been spending the past year talking about him as though he was. So all those nasty things that the Democrats have said about Trump was just a bunch of BS. Mark says Ms. McMahon has been a big supporter of Trump the entire time. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt. She ran for U.S. Senate a few years ago, actually. I want to say Massachusetts, maybe. Something like that. Connecticut, maybe. Anyway, just a couple more picks here. Caroline Leavitt for press secretary. Don't know much about her. I'll put her in the B tier. She's been a fine spokesman for the campaign. I'm sure she'll be a fine spokesman, or else she'll be replaced. So I'm sure, press secretary is it's a ministerial job. It's just, you do the task you're given, which is to spin positively everything the president does, So certainly she's more attractive than Biden's press secretaries have been. So there's that going for her. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure she'll be fine. Next up, we have Chris Wright for Secretary of Energy. And by the way, folks who don't know, Mark says Connecticut. There you go. Any word on Angela McArdle or another libertarian? I have no word. The Trump administration does not talk to me, so I don't know. Alaganu says Biden will try to screw over Trump, but I don't think it will work. We'll talk about that in a minute or two here. Chris Wright for Energy Secretary. I was going to say, a lot of people don't know this. The Department of Energy is actually mostly national security stuff. It's military stuff because energy is a big part of the national security picture. And when your country goes to war, energy becomes a really big, important part of it. So a lot of what the Energy Department does is not so much in terms of just cheap renewable energy. Renewable, where'd that come from? Cheap energy for the American people. It's all kinds of military applications and things like that too. And of course, the infrastructure, the grid, all that kind of stuff. The Democrats are absolutely freaking the fuck out over Chris Wright. So I'm going to put him in the A tier for sure. He is from an energy company, big supporter of fracking and drilling. So he's hitting all the right notes. All of the green people are weeping. So good choice for that job. Good job, Trump. And finally, we have Doug Collins for Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Doug Collins is a former congressman from Georgia. I think we worked with him when I worked on the Hill. He was, I think, on the oversight committee, as was my boss. And seemed like a really sharp guy, conservative. He was, I believe, one of Trump's defenders in the first impeachment proceedings. He's an attorney. Seemed like a sharp guy. He was a chaplain for the Air Force Reserve. Fine choice. I see no reason not to put him in the A tier. I can't think of someone better. I don't know who I'd pick for that job. So there you go. So with that, the tier list is looking I mean, it's not very centered, but it is at least balanced between good people and people I don't trust. Although a lot of these national security roles are pretty heavy on the bottom. We'll talk about the foreign policy stuff in a second. Alganu says Germany does not care about energy when they went to war with Ukraine. Who blew up Nord Stream? Yeah, well, we don't want to be like Germany. They have deindustrialized their country. Europe is in the shithouse, and Germany is leading the plummet. So, and who blew up Nord Stream? We did. But Germany just sat back and took it. So that's what they get. They are officially our biatch. So that's just how that goes. Then there's all these investigations that then they couldn't disclose the results of because they all showed the U.S. did it. It's really pathetic and sad, and that's too bad. But that's the state Europe is in. So the Alternative for Germany party had a very good election this year, and perhaps after another, however long they're in power, however long till they have the next elections in Germany, continuing its downward spiral, maybe the German people will rise up and elect people that actually care about their country. We'll see. But that's not my problem. I don't care about Germany. Anyway, so where were we? A couple of things I wanted to talk about real quick. By the way, I forgot to mention this. Since we have Vivek on the chart here in the S tier, the Department of Government Efficiency. Do you guys see Elon has just posted on X that he's looking for full-time people to work their tails off for no pay to make recommendations for what to cut. Now maybe it's just a scheme to get extremely motivated people to apply by saying you won't be paid. It's going to be no compensation to work 80 hours a week. We'll see. But on that note, you might have seen this in the news. Vivek Ramaswamy was basically offered a U.S. Senate seat. The governor of Ohio said, "I'll appoint Vivek if Trump tells me to." And Vivek said, "No, I want to work with this Elon group with the Department of Government Efficiency." He turned down a U.S. Senate seat. That's a pretty big sacrifice. That's more than it's more than people realize, and maybe more than Vivek realizes. But the opportunity to take a U.S. Senate seat does not come around more than once in a lifetime, and rarely even that often. And despite his national name ID, I assure you, it's tough for an Indian American with a name like Ramaswamy to get elected to a U.S. congressional seat, let alone a U.S. Senate seat. Alganu says, didn't Germany ban the AfD party? They've been trying to. They haven't succeeded. They've been trying to. But they actually had very, very good results in the last election, and that's why Germany wants to ban them, because they're Nazis. That's what Germany is. It's a country of Nazis. They were Nazis in the 40s, and they're Nazis today. Hence why they support Ukraine so much. But anyway, let's not talk about that. Well, actually, let's talk about that, because we got to talk about what Trump's foreign policy is going to shape up like, because we're starting to see this thing take shape. Although there's actually one big question mark. One more thing I want to talk about this with these cabinet picks, which is the rumors floating around this week was Mike Rogers for FBI director, not Admiral Mike Rogers, not even Alabama Mike Rogers. No, Mike Rogers, the swamp rat from Florida and Washington that moved back to Michigan to run for U.S. Senate here in the past year. That Mike Rogers, former House Intelligence Committee chair. Hey, Patty, good to see you. Feel free to hop on. Same link as the usual. Mike Rogers for FBI director. If this happens, Trump's presidency is over, guys. It's that simple. Mike Rogers. In fact, let me pull this up, because Roger Stone really nailed this when he was. He made an article recently. Let me find it here. I thought I had this pulled up, but I didn't, so I have to find it now. Mike Rogers was going to run against Trump for president until he saw the writing on the wall and wised up. Decided instead the route to power would be to kiss Trump's ass, which did work to get him the endorsement and then the nomination. But here's the story. Let me put this up on the screen here. This is from Roger Stone, who had a similar article when he was running for U.S. Senate. Cheerleader for a Mueller investigation. Why should he be Trump's FBI director? Former Michigan Congressman Mike Rogers was the chief apologist for the mass surveillance policies that allowed Trump to be spied upon and sabotaged by unaccountable deep state bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. After losing a winnable Senate race earlier this month, he is now angling to be Trump's FBI director. You know, I would say, I'm not sure how winnable that seat actually was. To tell you the truth. Alyssa Slotkin had millions and millions and millions of dollars from the Democrats' money, and Rogers actually was coming up near the end. But there was a certain built-in constituency that was never going to support him, and that's me and the Ron Paul people and Allegan News who know about Mike Rogers. So here's some quotes from Mike Rogers. I don't believe today, as I'm sitting here, that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee in 2024. Don't believe it. He may actually stay in for a while. I just don't think I believe he'll be the nominee. His troubles are mounting. His fundraising is waning, Mike Rogers said in April 2023. So this is not like 2016. This is what Mike Rogers was saying a year ago. You can just sense the disdain this guy has for Trump. Trump's time has passed, he said. He called Trump's movement clearly destructive. In May 2023, he told a group of Oakland County, Michigan Republicans he supports the open-ended probe of election fraud protesters. And in fact, here's the clip right here. Remember this? Look at this guy.
So I'm going to take a very unpopular position here, and I'm going to disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. When you assault a police officer, you are a criminal. When you break a window to get into a place you are not authorized to be in, you are a criminal. We can't have separate standards for the people who were rioting and breaking things that I thought should go to jail, and have a separate standard for somebody that broke into the Capitol and assaulted. You know, they used mace on a police officer, they hit him with a...
Okay, so first off, those are lies, both of them. There was no mace on a police officer. There was no fire extinguishers. About to start saying that. Those were debunked hoaxes. And besides that, the whole premise of that question, that was what he definitely ignored, which is that there was no fairness between the persecution of the January 6th people versus the rioters, the people that actually did kill people, the Democrats that just walk free, that were never prosecuted. But Rogers ignores that question because he doesn't care about that issue. He doesn't care about also the inhuman treatment. Like, okay, you want to be prosecuted for breaking into the Capitol? Fine. It has to be commensurate with the crime and with what you've done for when Democrats protest, which is nothing. Not destroying their lives, putting them in a gulag. But Rogers doesn't care about any of those people. He hates those people. They're Trump supporters. And as Allegan News says, yeah. You know, I saw someone had a story. I forget where I saw it. Whining about, it was Breitbart. Breitbart had a story. It was behind a paywall. Apparently Breitbart thinks they're special enough to have paywalled articles now. And the story was that the third-party candidates cost Rogers the election because so many of these third-party voters happened. If only there was no third-party candidates, Rogers would have won. No, he wouldn't have. I would have either not voted at all. Might even voted for Slotkin. I probably wouldn't have voted for Slotkin. I think Slotkin is so odious I couldn't bear to. But if the Democrat was not completely unbearable, I would have voted for the Democrat just to beat Rogers. That's like not voting twice. You're right. I don't want Rogers to win. So anyway, and look, guys, I don't want to keep bringing up Mike Rogers, but Mike Rogers keeps putting himself into this discussion. And make no mistake about it, all these rumors that Trump is considering Mike Rogers for FBI director are rumors being started and promoted by Mike Rogers and the Deep State and the neocons. So that's what they do. That's what they do all the time. Is they start rumors to try to build that air of inevitability, and that's where that comes from. All these so-and-so Trump might be considering for cabinet. A lot of this comes from the neocons. Although unfortunately, sometimes, like with Marco Rubio, Trump actually takes their advice. Apparently, although actually Trump's been Marco's been brown-nosing Trump for the past like 4 years or more. Anyway, of course, the opposite choice would be Kash Patel, who will go hard after all these deep state swamp people. So fingers crossed that Trump picks Kash Patel or somebody equally fearsome to the deep state. So we shall see. But if Trump picks Mike Rogers, mark my words, if Mike Rogers becomes the FBI director, there will be another impeachment of Trump. And Mike Rogers will be involved in it. I guarantee you that. Let's hope we don't have to ever find out the answer on that. But anyway, some more thoughts on some of these other picks. Been thinking more about Pete Hegseth for Department of Defense. He is probably going to have a real tough time with confirmation hearings because he's really young. He's like my age. He's a couple of years older than me, but barely. And as we just discussed in the cold open, but they'll use it against him. He has no experience running a huge bureaucracy, and the Pentagon really is one. He says he's going to clean house, fire a lot of generals. How? Here's an article, by the way. This is for anyone who think, because the other angle to this, by the way, is the left is playing this up like, oh my God, he's going to fire generals. Look at this. In the first 5 years of office, this is, and less than 5, because this story you can see is time-stamped October 29th, 2013. Obama's military coup purges 197 officers in 5 years. And here's the story. What the president calls my military is being cleansed of any officer suspected of disloyalty or disagreement with the administration or matters of policy or force structure, leaving the compliant and fearful. Oh, I see. Leaving the compliant and fearful as being the people that are now in the roles. We recognize President Obama as the commander-in-chief and that throughout history, presidents from Lincoln to Truman have seen fit to remove military commanders they view as inadequate or insubordinate. Turnover is normal, et cetera, et cetera. And then they give all these different reasons why different people were removed from Obama's administration, leaving blast doors on nukes open, loss of confidence and commandability, big change there, mishandling of funds, inappropriate relationships, gambling with counterfeit ships, inappropriate behavior, low morale in troops commanders. So basically, a good reason if you get one. If not, whatever. We'll come up with something. However, it's not just the Secretary of Defense that just fires all these people. There's the Joint Chiefs of Staff. There's the chiefs of staff of the different branches. So I don't think that the secretary just fires whoever they don't like. I don't think it works that way. But I think that's the main reason why Trump likes him, why Trump has picked Pete Hegseth. It's not for his decades of experience in high-level military positions, because he doesn't have that. He was, I think, was he a captain? I think was his rank, which is not, I mean, it's not bad. But he's a young guy. I'm sure there's people that would be more experienced with how to, deal with taking out the trash at the Pentagon. But a big thing is loyalty for him. It's just not going to be that easy. And then the question becomes, is he going to survive confirmation hearings? Which is a question for several of Trump's picks, of course, the best ones, because that's the way this goes, right? Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy, and of course, Matt Gaetz. So we'll see. One thing that people have been talking about is that there might be a recess appointment, which would require the cooperation of Mike Johnson. But if you guys saw that thumbnail for the stream tonight, in fact, here, I can put it up on the screen. Here, let me do this real quick. Hold on. Let's see here. This is the for those who are watching on like X or something. This was the thumbnail for tonight's stream, and you'll notice there's a certain individual whose face has been obscured by the text, and that, of course, is Mike Johnson. Because I don't want to even put him in the photo with the others. But Mike Johnson's partying it up with Vivek and Tulsi and Bobby Kennedy Jr. Almost like Trump might be wanting to get on his good side to maybe work up some recess appointments. That might be what the play is. Because if the House and the Senate can't agree on going into recess, the president can call the recess, and then he can just make appointments, which I believe are good for 2 years. And that would be a huge workaround, a huge workaround for the U.S. Senate on many appointments. And you can see how all of a sudden Mike Johnson has a lot of power to put an end to the many headaches that the U.S. Senate might be giving Trump in the future. Alga News asking, am I going to the inauguration? I doubt it. I very much doubt it. It's not my cup of tea. As you can see, guys, look, I know there's a big part, and I hate to be a buzzkill. I hate to be the buzzkill because with this great election, and we really hope that this all is going to work out for the best. My gut tells me, though, that the only way that's going to happen is if everything goes really well, and there's so many points of failure where things can go off the rails that, I mean, it's a needle that's got to be threaded, and maybe Trump can pull it off, but I have too many hesitations about it, and I don't know if taking a whole trip out to Washington just to feel the joy in the air, I don't know. It's just not me. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind. Mark says I voted for Mike Rogers, but he was not my favorite to be the Republican Party nominee. Yeah, well, we all have our different limits, and for me, Rogers crossed too many red lines. He says I do think Trump should pick more than one libertarian to his cabinet. I doubt he will, but maybe. He promised libertarians he'll free Ross Ulbricht on day one, so we'll see. That'll be a good day one litmus test. Will he free Ross Ulbricht on day one? Because if he doesn't, then he'll have broken his word to a major constituency. So we'll see. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, talking about Matt Gaetz. By the way, for those who don't know, Matt Gaetz made this big showing this week about him resigning from Congress because he can't wait to take over the Justice Department. But you know, if he gets word between now and New Year's that Mike Johnson is not going to play ball on getting the recess appointment, and that there's no way he's going to get confirmed by the Senate, he can actually walk back into the House seat on January 3rd because he resigned from Congress, but he resigned from Congress for this term. He still got reelected for his next term. So he hasn't resigned from that one yet. So, you know, if he finds, and that'll be a tell, by the way, that'll be a tell on January 3rd. If Matt Gaetz walks back into his congressional office, then you'll know the recess appointments ain't happening. So we'll see. We shall see. Anyway, so I guess the big question is what Trump's agenda is going to be. And, you know, I'm encouraged, especially in the foreign policy stuff, that Tulsi Gabbard's in the mix. And as DNI, you know, that's a pretty high level post for sure. Although then you've got neocon Mike Waltz is national security advisor. Tulsi needs to be confirmed. He does not. And actually, I think maybe national security advisor might even be more influential. Like think about the Biden administration. We've seen Jake Sullivan in the news for the past 4 years. Like he is all the time. He's got the president's ear. He's in the media. You know who Biden's director of national intelligence is? Chat, don't cheat. Don't look it up. Did you know off the top of your head? I bet very few, if anyone does. Avril Haines was her name. I had to look it up. I couldn't remember. You never hear from her, ever. So who will be more influential? Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, or Tulsi Gabbard? I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. But in terms of domestic policy, I think things are looking pretty clear that Trump is going to be on the right track there. Elon and Vivek slashing the federal bureaucracy, Bobby Kennedy at HHS, Tom Homan with the border, and who are the other ones? Someone else I was going to mention. Oh, the energy secretary guy. It looks like the domestic agenda is pretty clear. The only thing we don't have yet, we don't have a Department of Education. Oh, that's right. We're getting rid of the Department of Education, aren't we? It'd probably still be good for Trump to name a Secretary of Education just for someone who's going to be determined to shut that department down for good. Biden, Alga News says, Biden appoints mostly steal your luggage and dress up like women. Yeah, there was that guy. The real challenge, well, I think actually, I was going to say the foreign policy is the thing I was going to say. Although now that I think about it, the Fed's a problem too. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Did he name Treasury Secretary yet? I don't think he did. Let me consult my list. Treasury Secretary, was that on there? Let's see. Hold on. Help me out, Chad. Do you see a Treasury Secretary on here? I don't think we have one. No. No Treasury yet. We shall see. But anyway, I was going to talk about those foreign policy. Basically, 3 areas: Ukraine, Middle East, China. What's Trump going to do in those 3 areas? And all week long, I've heard people speculating, reading the tea leaves in all kinds of different ways from these different picks that he's made, and their opinions differ, and they're different people I respect. So it's hard to say. But I will say what I kind of see, how I kind of see things going here. I think China is something that Trump's going to probably not even really quite get to, honestly. He's going to come in and going to say, there's 2 things I got to deal with right now: Russia, China, the Russia-Ukraine thing, and the Middle East thing. And then once we have those things worked out, then we can start, so at least one of those things worked out, we can start looking at China, maybe. Trump is a sharp guy. He respects power. He knows how powerful China is. I don't think he's going to want to get into a war with China over Taiwan. I don't see Trump playing it that way. The issues are, what's he going to do about Ukraine? What's he going to do about the Middle East? Yeah, Alga Newsom's got to deal with China with a Y. China. Well, we'll talk about what he might be able to do about them. But the question is, what will he do? Here's what I think is going to happen. So first off, there's already been talk that he's going to appoint someone to be a special envoy to Russia or to Ukraine, or both, or something. I don't know, something like that. And we've heard for a long time, I mean, going back to the Council on Foreign Relations 2 years ago, Richard Haas was saying, okay, here's what we should do about the whole conflict. What we should do is offer Russia these terms that we're going to freeze the conflict, and Russia can keep the territory they've gotten, and we'll have like a demilitarized buffer zone or something, and then Ukraine can do it at once, or maybe there'll be like a 20-year pause on Ukraine joining NATO, something along those lines. And I suspect that's the kind of deal that Trump's going to offer to Russia. And Russia's going to say no. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to. Russia has been fighting a war for the past 3 years almost now. And at various stages, they've offered terms. And the last time they offered terms was like back in June. And they told Ukraine, this is the last time we're going to give you guys a deal. And the deal is, if you withdraw all your troops, you acknowledge the land we have is ours, and you never ever join NATO, then we can talk. then we can talk. They were going to call it Istanbul Plus, because there was this early arrangement in Istanbul to end the war in April of 2022, and Ukraine almost signed it. It was an amazing offer. And then Boris Johnson, doubtless with American approval, flies out to Ukraine and says, no, don't do that. Fight him. We'll help you win. And the agreements went into the trash, and that was the end of it. Russia has made they've said this a million times. We will not ever, 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 ever tolerate Ukraine becoming part of NATO. Ever. They've also said that the reason they went to war was because Ukraine, with NATO weapons, was about to carry out effectively a genocide against Russians in Ukraine. Because this whole Donbass population, Donetsk and Lugansk, are mostly Russian. They're ethnic Russians that live in Ukraine. Because, Russians and Ukrainians, they've been like one country for a long time. They're like New York and New Jersey. There's tons of ethnic Russians in Ukraine. So, okay, if you freeze the conflict, that's great for the Russians that are in what is now a part of Russia, according to Russia, Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson. But there's also majority Russian populations in Kharkov, in Dnipropetrovsk, in Odessa. And they're not going to allow the West thinks this whole thing is about land. Russia's like, we have plenty of land. This is about people. This is about people, and we're not going to allow Ukraine to terrorize Russians, not in Ukraine and certainly not in Russia. So if you freeze the conflict, but you still say, oh, but Ukraine may one day join NATO, they're not going to leave ethnic Russians in these other parts of Ukraine to the mercy of the West. They're not going to. So the whole idea that we've been having these talks with like European countries, what can we do? First off, by the way, Zelensky won't tolerate any of these things. They've already said, they passed a law in Ukraine that says they will not negotiate with Russia. So we have all these plans. And the other thing that they've been talking about floating around is we need to do something, offer Russia something that will get them to not be so tight with China. And the Russians have already said, forget it. Forget it. There's nothing you can do. Nothing you can offer us that will make us compromise our relationship with China now, which is something that the Biden administration completely fucked up, and it can't be undone, ever. The genie is out of the bottle. China and Russia are now allies. They speak of each other as allies. It's not. They're not technically officially allies, but I think like recently, Xi Jinping talked of Russia as like our allies. He just casually said it that way. So what in the world would the United States offer Russia, who we are currently at war with and using our weapons to kill them, that's going to break them away from China, their friend and trading partner, who's also their neighbor? Yeah, that sounds like a good play. Hey, Trump's going to go, hey, Dave Putin, we'll let you keep the land you've already won in the war in exchange for you breaking off your relations with China. Stop being friends with your friend and be friends with your enemies. Yeah, fat chance that's going to happen. So right now, literally today, Biden just authorized American weapons to be used to kill Russians in Russia. And Trump's going to make, there's not going to be any one amazing phone call. The one phone call that would work is to say, okay, hey, Russia, here's the deal. We're going to make Ukraine an offer, and when they refuse it, we're going to wash our hands of it. How about that? That might actually work, because Zelensky won't take the deal. Zelensky can't take any deal because he's got banderists with pistols pointed at the back of his skull, ready to blow his brains out, and then he tries to negotiate with Russia. So he's just going to say to Zelensky, you need to reach a peace deal now, and you got to concede that Crimea and the 4 territories are gone. Zelensky will say, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. Okay, goodbye. And that's the end of it. That would work. But I don't think Trump will do that. I don't think he can do that because he's got to be tough. He can't look like he's walking away. And that's the trap Biden is setting for him. They're setting a trap so that they know that Trump's weak point is he can't look weak. And if we just get up and walk away, they're going to say that looks weak. Trump's path is this. He has one path in Ukraine. And the path is he gets up on stage and says, Joe Biden started this war. It's on him. I'm getting us out. And if that doesn't go well for Russians or Ukrainians or whatever, that's on Joe Biden. That was his war. I'm ending it now. You don't like it? Joe Biden. Talk to him. Talk to him and Kamala. It's their war. It's their fault. They got us into this mess. I'm getting us out. The end. If Trump could do that. But he's got all these people like John Radcliffe and Mike Waltz who are telling him, no, we can't do it that way. And he's all these people telling him, don't worry, Russia's weak, as if there's some kind of trick play. Folks, if there was any way that we could have won this war with Russia by just doing more or going harder, Biden would have done it. There is no such way. There is no path. Mark says, I think Trump has learned a lot now. Trump probably knows how to deal with foreign countries by far better than he did before. Well, maybe. We'll see. But here's the problem, Mark. The world has gotten the environment that Trump is in has gotten a lot more hostile. When Trump left office in 2020, the world feared America. Russia didn't know what would happen when they were going to invade Ukraine. They're like, we might have, sanctions cripple us. We might lose friends and allies. We might lose militarily. It might go very difficult. It might go very badly. And then the Russian people rise up against us. That's what the West was predicting would happen. They thought the Russian people would overthrow Putin over the Ukraine thing. And that didn't happen at all, did it? So now, if Trump walks back in the White House, he might have learned a lot, but he's going to have to deal with the reality that our military is not what it was when he left. Our reputation is not what it was when it left. BRICS is now this giant economic bloc of Russia, China, and Iran, which leads me to the other thing, what's going to do about the Middle East? Because that's the same thing they're going to say is, we got to get tougher on Iran. Well, how? You going to sanction them more? They tried that. What happened? Iran endured the sanctions. Well, now Iran's in BRICS. Now they're in a better position to endure sanctions. So, I think they even just said this. Trump said, we're going to have a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. Well, okay. What do you think the Biden's position is? light kid gloves on Iran? Maybe. Iran's going to say no. And then what's going to happen? They're going to try. Israel's going to try. Israel's objective is to get us into war against the entire Middle East, all their enemies, Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all of them. That's what Israel's objective is. Get the United States into a war that they can't get out of. And how's that going to go? All that, I was the only president to not get into a war is going to go out the window. And I don't see his cabinet being filled with people that are going to be smart about this. Now, maybe, I will at least say this. The problem that Biden has is when his idiots fuck up and fail, they double down because they can't ever admit they're wrong. They got us into this war in Ukraine. It's going badly. Oh, we should give them more stuff. That's what the neocons always say. Oh, just give them more. Just give them more. Just give them more. They have no concept of the limitations of resources. So what are we doing wrong? You gotta just give them more stuff. Give them F-16s, which still haven't gotten there, by the way, which tells you something. Trump has, I think, a different approach, which is, oh, this was a bad idea. It's not going well. You're fired. He'll throw somebody under the bus. So if all goes badly, there is at least the hope that they can course correct because Trump will be in control of his administration, whereas Biden was not. That Biden's administration controlled him. Trump's filling his entire account with people who are, at least on paper, loyal to him. I think some of those folks might stab him in the back, but most of them, I think, have proven loyalty, at least proven better than some of the others. But we'll see. And with all of that, I think Trump will probably not get into it with China too much because things get mired in these other conflicts. But we'll see. I want to play a clip for you, though, just so you guys see something, because, I don't want this to seem like this is all going to be inevitable. Allegan News says, I think Trump's cabinet is smarter than Biden's. It will be. I'm sure it will be, but that's not saying much. It's not saying very much. Yeah, they'll be smarter than Biden, but so what? My dogs are smarter than Biden's cabinet people. Anyway, here's an alternative. Let me put this up on the screen just so you guys can see. This is
he recognized.
I want to. This is just so you can see there is another way. So this is Scott Ritter, former weapons inspector, talking to Nima, who's a Brazilian guy, just has a podcast. But anyway, this is going to be Scott Ritter talking here with a humble suggestion for President Trump. Let's watch.
He recognizes that de-dollarization is one of the great threats to the United States. I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump came in on day one and said, I am ending all sanctions against Russia and China, ending them, lifting them. SWIFT, open for business. Russian banks, come on in, use it. What just happened? Just doing that alone, what happened? Oh, and the third component. And I'm releasing the sovereign wealth funds back to Russia. We're not seizing them anymore. We're going to repay them all the interest that we stole. BRICS just had a meeting where they were talking about how they're going to be moving forward to a BRICS currency, alternative banking systems, et cetera. But they themselves are acknowledging it's very difficult to do. It's very inefficient to do, very expensive to do, but they have no choice because the United States has denied them access to the dollar. What he just did is made it impossible for BRICS to go forward on that. He doesn't have to say, I'm opposed to it. He can say, if I were Donald Trump, I'd give a speech. I support BRICS in moving forward in any direction they want to. And if BRICS chooses to move forward with an alternative currency, that's a decision they made. But until they do that, I'm making the dollar available to everybody. The dollar is back to being global friendly. You can rely on the dollar. And SWIFT, I know that you guys are trying to get something there, but it's not quite there yet. So in the meantime, while they're trying to do that, come on over to SWIFT and make it happen. That's the end of BRICS's de-dollarization. Isn't going to happen. As long as you sustain this, make the dollar friendly. That is a huge victory for the United States. As Vladimir Putin has pointed out, over the course of time, making the dollar the world's reserve currency, it's about $12 trillion of economic benefit the United States has accrued from that we're going to lose if we allow it to do. So the first thing you have to do is undermine that, but you don't do it by attacking that. You just simply do it by making the dollar attractive.
So there you go. All you need to do to screw over the entire effort to get away from the dollar is stop sanctioning everybody and make the dollar something they can use again. You think anybody in Trump's administration is thinking that way? It's possible. It's possible. And Scott might be right. Trump probably does understand that the de-dollarization is the major economic threat to America is de-dollarization. Is all these countries getting together and saying, you know what, we're going to build an alternative to the US dollar because that would be economically devastating to us. But having heard the things that Trump has said over the course of the campaign and having heard the things these people he's been appointing have said for the past year, is anybody saying anything like this? No. So you would have to cling to the hope that the only reason they're not talking about anything like this is because they know the politics of it and they're just waiting to get through the election. But now the confirmation hearings, once they get through the confirmation hearings, then the real MAGA agenda will emerge and all these brilliant things will happen and Trump will end the wars and Trump will make America great again, making America trade with everybody again, and all this other great stuff. I don't see it this way, guys. I think, you look at the cards on their faces. You don't think they're going to have this secret plan that they're not talking about. Al Ganu says the dollar is trash in the current environment of BRICS and oil no longer traded in U.S. dollars. Not quite yet, but it's going that way. It is absolutely going that way. And it is going to be a huge long-term problem. Right now, if you look at who the United States considers its friends, it's Europe, Canada, Australia, and Japan. Right? And the up-and-coming powers in the world are not any of those countries. These are all countries that have thrown their economies away on green garbage and Ukraine. And the rest of the world is becoming manufacturing powerhouses. And it will take an extreme amount of courage for Trump to change course on that. And, fingers crossed, guys. I really, really hope that does happen. But my heart tells me it's not going to happen. And just to make that point here, this is Mike Waltz just the other day. This was Mike Waltz 2 weeks ago.
Strategy to get both sides to the table. I think it's perfectly reasonable that this is going to come to some type of diplomatic resolution. And first and foremost, you would enforce the actual energy sanctions on Russia. Russia is essentially a gas station with nukes. Putin is selling more oil and gas now than he did pre-war through China and Russia. And you couple that with unleashing our energy, lifting our LNG ban. and his economy and his war machine will dry up very quickly. I just spoke with the Speaker of the Parliament of Lithuania.
Mm-hmm.
She buys 85% of their oil and gas from Texas and Louisiana. She said, what do you want me to do? Go back to buying from Russia? Because we've constrained our energy supplies. So I think that will get Putin to the table. We have leverage like taking the handcuffs off of the long-range weapons we provided Ukraine as well. And then, of course, I think we have plenty of leverage with Zelensky to get them to the table.
So this guy's a complete retard at best. There's no way that there's some secret plan he's got that's going to be the complete opposite of this. This guy thinks you're going to be able to sanction Russia into submission. Fat chance. And that is who Trump has just named his national security advisor. So, yeah, this is going to be a mess, guys. I think it will be. I pray it won't, but I suspect it likely will. Anyway, in happier news, this story just came out. If you saw this one, Trump allies fume over possible new Senate GOP hires. A plenary consideration would upend the party's traditional method of competing in Senate races and could cause discord among Republican financial players. So you've got Tim Scott, the rhino in charge of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. That's the organization that funds the U.S. Senate campaigns. And the story is that Donald Trump's team, convinced that the Senate GOP campaign arm and its top ally super PAC are hiring never-Trumpers for key roles, because they are, is preparing to launch its own super PAC to compete in the next round of Senate races in 2026, according to two close allies. The plan, if carried out, would upend the party's traditional method of competing in Senate races and could cause discord, major discord among powerful GOP financial players, pitting Trump and his new regime against longtime GOP donors seeking to influence competitive Senate races. The move could disperse money across multiple entities and hinder the Senate Leadership Fund. That's another version of the NRSC, a group that was created to be a centralized GOP clearinghouse for Senate spending. Good. Let's hope that Trump and his MAGA campaign arm knock out the NRSC, the people that elect, that handpick these shitty candidates like Mike Rogers to be the primary candidates for the U.S. Senate. And also steer the money poorly. That was real sad about, what's the guy's name? Sam Brown, I think in Nevada, that lost it very, very narrowly to Jackie Rosen. Sam Brown, a severely injured combat veteran who suffered severe burns on his face from, I think from an IED, competing against Jackie Rosen, the Democrat who supports dragging women into the military draft. And she beat him in that Senate race. But I'll bet you the NRSC just didn't want to spend quite as much money on that seat as they did on Mike Rogers' seat in Michigan, did they? So congratulations, we lost both of those seats. But I'll bet you, I'll bet you those rhinos at the National Republican Senatorial Committee didn't want to go all in against Jackie Rosen for Sam Brown. I think his name was Sam Brown. They're busy supporting warmongers like Mike Rogers. So good. Let's hope that Trump's campaign arm does better. Anyway, got some state news for you guys before we call it a stream. We have survived 1 week of the lame duck session in the legislature. No vote yet on the national popular vote, but that does not mean it's gone forever. However, the good news is they are out of session next week and through Thanksgiving, so they won't come back until December. They still have 2.5 weeks of session left at that point, but at least they're not taking one more week or week and a half to pass even more garbage. And there is plenty of garbage. Let me just give you some stories here. First off, there was this story in the Midwesterner today. Democrats move to reverse move to ban CPL exemptions for churches, gas stations, restaurants, claim, oops, drafting error. And the story is that these Senate bills 857 and 858 spell out prohibitions against carrying concealed weapons in the Michigan State Capitol and the legislative buildings. However, the Senate bill, one of the Senate bills also eliminated a section of law providing exemptions for concealed carry license holders allowing them to possess firearms in thousands of other places, including churches, sports arenas, grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, and banks. And Brandon Boudreaux, buddy of mine, the Great Lakes Gun Rights, caught this in the when the bills came up for our Senate committee hearing and hit the alarm. And as a result, the Democrats have now retreated and claimed it was a drafting error. Yeah, right. They tried to sneak that through, but they didn't. So great work, Brendan, for keeping an eye on that. There's also a news story in Merge News. They're moving forward a new bill, a homeless Bill of Rights, moving out of subcommittee. And by the way, anything that's moving in any step at this point is something that they're trying to get done before the end of the year. In a 5-2 vote, gee, I wonder how the vote went. Let me guess, 5 Democrats to 2 Republicans moved. It says, hold on, it says moved to the House Economic Development. What it really means is, well, it says from a subcommittee hearing. But that's going to probably be the only hearing it gets. And then there's those blah, blah, blah garbage. Emily Devendorf, who, by the way, was a radical like transgender activist before she was a lawmaker, says this bill serves as an equality bill, not an equity bill. It does not expand rights, but creates a standard where previously established rights for everybody also apply to the homeless population. Well, that's weird because it would already apply to them then. So let's look at the bill, shall we? Let's see what this homeless Bill of Rights actually is. And let's just see if it's really just restating existing law that applies to everybody. Alga News says, need to see what Lame Duck is doing that's more important than national who Trump picks. Well, I mean, for America, what Trump is doing is a bigger story, but we're in Michigan. Let's keep an eye on Michigan too. It is a bunch of BS, but it's a lot of BS. And we should be aware of some of it. Anyway, so it is the long-standing policy of this state that an individual should not suffer unnecessarily from cold or hunger, be deprived of shelter or basic rights incident to shelter, or be subject to unfair discrimination based on the individual's homeless status. Many individuals are homeless as a result of economic hardship, a severe shortage of safe and affordable housing, and a shrinking social safety net. By the way, Democrats have bills to make rent even more expensive. All kinds of when you make rent controls, which they say, oh, this will lower their rent. No, what you do is create scarcity. But anyway, I digress. In particular, youths aged 13 to 15 and young adults aged 16. This is all just a bunch of blather and nonsense. This does not have any force or effect of anything. An individual's rights, privilege, or access to public services must not be denied or abridged solely because the individual is homeless or perceived as being homeless. Individuals homeless shall be granted the same rights and privileges as any citizen of the state. Individual experience homeless has all of the following rights. Let's see what this says. The right to use and move freely in public spaces, including not limited to public sidewalks, public parks, public transportation, public buildings. In the same manner as any individual without discrimination on the basis of the individual's housing status. Okay. Did they have a fair card? Let's see. The right to equal treatment by all state and municipal agencies without discrimination on the basis of housing status. The right to freedom from discrimination in employment because of the lack of a permanent. Wait, hold on. Wait, what's this? The right to freedom from discrimination in employment because of the lack of a permanent mailing address or having a mailing address that is a shelter or social service provider. Really? So if you're an employer and a homeless person applies for a job, you don't think that the employer has the right to go, this person might not do well here, given they're homeless. Because that seems like a right the employer does have too. The right to hire who they think is going to be the best fit for the business. Where does this come from? Is this a long-standing policy in Michigan? Is this in law someplace? That it is against the law for an employer to discriminate employees based upon not being homeless or being homeless? Because, some employers might go, I want to make sure that, you have access to like a shower and stuff and a clean set of clothes every day. That might be important here. The right to emergency medical care free from discrimination based on housing status. Sure. The right to register to vote and receive Oh, really? The right to vote, register to vote, and receive documentation necessary to prove identity for voting without discrimination in housing. Well, actually, that is a problem. Because if you don't live anywhere at all, then you don't have a residence address, and then how can we know that you're not also voting in Ohio, say, or Wisconsin for that matter, or anywhere else? Or maybe there'd be a problem with someone who actually does have a home, but just might choose to say I'm homeless for purposes of registering to vote. The right to protection from disclosure to state, municipal, or private entities without appropriate legal authority of the individual's records or information that was provided. A homeless shelter, the right to confidentiality of personal records and information in accordance with the blah, blah, blah. The right to a reasonable expectation of privacy in the individual's personal property. What does that mean? Your tent? On the sidewalk? What personal property do you have a right to privacy in if you're homeless? By definition, you're either on someone else's property or you're on public land. So where does this right to privacy not apply to either the property owner whose property you might be on in that moment, or, or on public land? The right of homeless needs to be enrolled in school. That's good. That's nice. And what's this? In a civil action alleging a violation of this act, the court may afford appropriate injunctive and declaratory relief. Injunctive relief, forcing someone to do something. Actual damage and reasonable attorney's fees and costs to a prevailing plaintiff. At least it says may and not shall. So there's your homeless Bill of Rights, guys. They have a right to privacy on your land, either literally yours or the public, which is all of ours. And the right to be free from discrimination in employment. So, I agree. This is BS law. Yep. Welcome to San Francisco, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And then we also have another one. This is another brand new bill. House Bill 6068. I mentioned this in an email this week. Introduced 5 days ago. So last Tuesday. Weird to introduce a bill at this hour, You only have 2.5 weeks of session left. How is this bill going to get through committees, the House, and the Senate? Well, maybe it won't. Algan says, do I have the same rights as homeless? Well, we all should have the same rights. Which is why you shouldn't need that other bill. Because what is it saying that is not already the law? Is there some place in the law that says this does not apply to homeless people? No. So it is a special right. So Emily was lying. Imagine that. Anyway, House Bill 6068, introduced by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and about 20 Democrats. Something like that. This is a bill to revise sex ed in schools. Public schools, I hope. This is a section that starts off with a sentence that, let's see. Does the principal modes by which communicable diseases, including not limited to blah, are spread, must be taught in every public school in the state? Okay, so this is the curriculum, sex ed curriculum, public schools, thank God. What are they adding? What are they taking out? Let's see, taking out the word dangerous, communicable diseases. Wouldn't want people to think diseases are dangerous. Including but not limited to HIV and AIDS. Wouldn't want that spelled out anywhere, would we? Wouldn't want people to be aware of HIV and AIDS. No, just sexually transmitted infections in general, including HIV, because they put HIV back in but took AIDS out. Weird. And are spread, and the best methods for the restriction and prevention, and took off restriction of these diseases. And let's see here. And look at this. The teaching under this section must stress that abstinence from sex is a responsible and effective method for restriction and prevention of these diseases and is a positive lifestyle for unmarried young people. Wouldn't want that being said. God forbid. Pretty sure that's actually true. If you really want to prevent those diseases, don't have sex. Now, you might want to have sex anyway, but just saying, you're going to make absolutely sure you don't get these diseases. Abstinence is not necessarily bad. By the way, it's weird how Democrats have this like two-mindedness about pregnancy. On one hand, they view the human race as a parasite on the planet, and they really, really, really don't want people having kids. You know, they want people to have abortions. They want people to have to be homosexual. They want to do anything they can to not have people making babies because there's too many people in the world. We're polluting the world. We're killing all the innocent animals. We're going to, you know, all these terrible things. Civilization is a cancer on the world. You know, these are things that Democrats and liberals say all the time. But God forbid you teach abstinence in schools. You understand. We want you guys having sex, just not having babies. That's the standard. Okay. Anyway. So this goes on. Factual information must be medically accurate and objective, whatever that means. And actually, I should say, you know, there's two things going on here. One is they're trying to use language like this to sell their bill as we're just following the science. All we're doing is putting these words in to make sure that we're doing what's medically accurate and objective. But actually, these words have legal meaning because someone can file suit against a school claiming whatever the teacher said was not medically accurate or objective. You know, they're opening doors for lawsuits. Because, you know, but another big interest group for the Democrats is lawyers. Anyway, a lot of, you know, minor stuff in here. We see, again, AIDS disappearing again for some reason. Some legislative housekeeping. Factual information includes medical. That doesn't mean much of anything. Verified or supported by research conducted in compliance with scientific methods and published in peer-reviewed journals. Man, I hope I was here somewhere. I heard that that Bobby Kennedy and Matt Gaetz are talking about holding some of these journals accountable for some of their junk science and the suppression of real science. But we'll see. Okay, let's look at some of these. How long is this bill? This bill, it's 13 pages. I'm going to try to skip around here. Let's just look at the important things. Let's see. There's definitely some things important here. There's a sex education advisory board now. Oh, that's great. At least 2 of the members of the Sex Education Advisory Board must be pupils of the school district. Hey, how you like that, guys? Hey, Jeff Fuss, what I miss? Oh, Democrats want to put children on a Sex Education Advisory Board. That's what you missed. I'm sure they'll find some adult high school students to serve on that board. Because there actually are a lot of them. I didn't know that. Like my high school we had a few 18-year-olds that were seniors, but not all that many. Well, I mean, people turned 18 their senior. A lot of people did that. But in other parts of the country, maybe in schools you guys went to, lots of adults are still in high school. I was surprised by that. Anyway, I went to it was a public school, but it was in the DC area. So there wasn't too many people held back too far. Anyway, let's see. More deleting stuff about abstinence. We wouldn't want any of that stuff going on there. Or out of wedlock pregnancy. Yeah, we don't want any of that stuff in there. That's going to all take on the curriculum. Deleting the part saying you can't actually distribute contraceptives on campus, on like in a school. I'm sorry, a family planning drug or device, as they call it. Those are no longer banned. Family planning means the use of range of methods of fertility regulation to help individuals or couples avoid unplanned pregnancies, bring about wanted births. That stuff's all out there. I wouldn't want any of that in here. Oh, and definitely get rid of this. Clinical abortion shall not be considered a method of family planning, nor shall abortion be taught as a method of reproductive health. That's going to be reversed for sure. In fact, I think it actually expressly puts it in here. Let's see here. Again, definitely delete everything about the benefits of abstinence. We don't want anything about sex until marriage. That's all going to be gone. Got to take that out because they do want people having sex, especially with people they're not married to. It starts that unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases are serious possibilities of sex that are not fully preventable except by abstinence. Yep. Get rid of this crap. Treat people how to say no to sexual advances, and that it is wrong to take advantage of, harass, or exploit another person sexually. Yes. Get rid of teaching refusal skills and encouraging people to resist pressure to engage in risky behavior. No. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want kids engaging in risky behaviors. People should not be taught and shall no longer be taught to base their actions on reasoning, self-discipline, a sense of responsibility, self-control, and ethical considerations such as respect for self and others. No, fuck that. Instead, let's see what we have instead here. The material factual information instruction must be medically accurate, blah, blah, blah. Any status that may be protected. Oh, here we go. Gender expression, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, size, structure, any blah, blah, blah. Provide students with knowledge and skills needed to make decisions about their optimal sexual health, relationships, and well-being, including cutting your dick off. Just kidding. Or am I? Let's see. Let's see here. Teach information on the prevention of interpersonal violence. Okay, well, that's not necessarily bad. Here we go. Include information about resources related to sexual and reproductive health care, sexual assault and partner violence, had access to these resources, like Planned Parenthood. Included non-invasive information about all legally available pregnancy outcomes, i.e. abortion. I'm sorry, e.g. abortion. The information described in this subdivision must include the importance of prenatal care and the laws of this state relating to the individual's rights and responsibilities, as in you don't have any. Cut your dick off and kill your baby. Firmly recognize individuals' different sexual orientations and gender identities. This is now mandated to be taught. And must be inclusive of their gender relationships, including, Zizim, Zizer, two-spirit people. And yeah, so there you go. So that is what those many Democrats want to ram through in the holiday season, introduced 5 days ago, might get a hearing and a vote in the House and the Senate and get sent to the governor's desk all in 2 weeks when no one's looking. Gritter Dunn on Rumble says, did they remove the required clergy on the panel? I'm sure they did. If it was even there to begin with. Was there a word about clergy in there? Yes. Yes, clergy gone. Clergy gone. So there you go. All right, guys. We've been at it for like an hour and a half. It's a long stream for just me. Let me close out the stream with just one more little story. On election night, there was a certain very butthurt individual who lost his primary in Plymouth Township. You might know. I wish Patty was here tonight. She'd be better to talk about this story. But this former, well, I should say not former. He's still there. But outgoing Plymouth Township supervisor by the name of Kurt Heisey, who ran a very, very nasty campaign against Charles Kermey, who ultimately went on to defeat him for Plymouth Township supervisor. And as it happens, Charles Kermey was the subject of an article that came out just 2 days ago in the Detroit News. And the story was that he has been accused of harassing a poll worker on election night. And here's the story, so you guys can see how full of shit it is. Here's the story. The supervisor-elect of a western Wayne County suburb is accused of harassing a poll worker and voters on election day. What did he do? He asked multiple times for voter counts inside of an area he was not allowed to be in as a campaigner and a candidate. Okay, but what is a poll challenger? According to a police report from the Plymouth Township Police, the incident happened on the afternoon of November 5th outside the precinct in St. Kenneth Church on Haggerty Road and involved Chuck Kermey. Kermey was recently elected Plymouth Township's new supervisor after running unopposed. He defeated incumbent supervisor Kurt Heisey in a contentious August primary. The chairperson of the precinct told police that Kermey approached her while she was outside the precinct, well inside of the 100-foot line set up near precincts to indicate where campaigners are legally able to be, and asked how many people had voted at that precinct that day, according to the police report. How many people have voted in that precinct so far today? Is that campaigning? Who did I endorse asking that question? Oh, nobody. So that's not campaigning. So this poll worker is an idiot. The precinct chair told him that voter totals aren't provided to campaigners, so she's an idiot, and said he needed to step back behind the cones to mark the 100-foot line, so she's an idiot and is completely wrong. But Kermey repeatedly began to ask her for the vote count, as is his right. Eventually, Kermey said, "Yes, you can give me a number. I'm not a campaigner. I'm with the Republican Party," the chair wrote in her statement to the police. So he correctly stated the law. He correctly identified himself as a poll challenger. He correctly said, "I'm not a campaigner." Kermey told the police he felt his request for the voter count was innocuous. It completely was. He did not respond to a request for comment Wednesday. It's not illegal to ask that question. Correct. An election challenger who was outside the precinct during the conversation said he heard Kermey ask the precinct chair for the voter number, he told police. The chair went back inside the precinct and reported the incident to the clerk's office, according to the police report. When she saw him pacing on his phone and drifting inside the 100-foot line, she again went outside to ask him to stay behind the line. So she's stupid, and she's also a bitch. Kermey told her he had moved the cones so she could remeasure the distance. Inside, a visibly agitated voter, i.e. hysterical Democrat, told her Kermey approached him and his family and asked him to get their voter number and report it back to him, according to the police report. He declined to call the police, but the chairperson made the call. "I was feeling intimidated by his behavior through these incidences," so she's also illiterate. She wrote in a statement to police, "I decided to call police because I felt harassed and felt that the voters were being harassed, so you're a moron." A spokesperson for the Michigan Attorney General's office has not responded to a request for comment on whether charges would be pursued. What charges? So in other words, Charles Kermey was absolutely 100% in his right to simply ask a voter how many people have voted today so far. And these Democrat lunatics freak out because that's what they do. So on Facebook, Kurt Heise posts 2 days ago, "You were warned, ... with a link to the article. And then below that, he says, "Somehow I don't think this will appear on the Rescue Michigan or other Matt Wilk or Matt Maddock approved sites." First off, we are honored to be approved by Matt Wilk and Matt Maddock. Secondly, Kurt Heise, as we discussed at length in our video, Kurt Heise is a lying bag of trash. You can find that video on all of our channels. Kurt Heise is a liar. He is a loser. And now he is also a complete moron because he is wrong. We did discuss this issue in its full depth on this show tonight. Gave it full coverage. So buzz off, Kurt. The people of Plymouth Township will not miss you. All right, guys, that will do it for us for tonight. It's been I don't know, I guess an up and down stream. We had some sad moments here and there, but just keeping it real. That's all there is to it. Keeping it real. I hope the Trump administration is going to exceed my wildest expectations, but the nice thing about being a pessimist is you're less often disappointed and more often pleasantly surprised. So that will do it for us for tonight. Tune in next week. Thank God the legislature in Michigan is out of town this week, so we don't have to worry about them, at least for another week or two. Until next time, guys, thanks for all you do for liberty. Peace.